With supine footwork and rotation, I think the floor series can be difficult in a lot of ways. I rarely vary the way that I teach this exercise, and I keep the cueing pretty scripted. So we were just talking about this flexibility in teaching. Of course, you can still have flexibility in teaching this, but the reason that I keep this scripted is because it's on the floor, and it's really hard if I'm not consistent with what I'm saying for people to just like focus on their bodies. Instead they're looking around at me. And I don't want them to, okay? I want them to trust in my cues and trust what I have to say. So you might want to kind of give that warning to people, but I think also you guys have done this work more, and now you guys have done enough that I think you're more familiar with it, but the idea of kind of it's almost hypnotic. So you're kind of weaving this relationship between you and the body and the bodies in front of you. And so this one, I would say the cueing is a bit more scripted. In terms of objectives, foot articulation, activation of the internal and external rotators, focus, alignment, and movement efficiency. Okay, so you start by laying supine or on your back with the knees drawn in towards the center. We went through this pretty specifically with regard to the when we talked about alignment. Just making sure that the pelvis is not tucked under, the pelvis stays neutral. If you tendu out the right leg. I generally don't do rotation when the leg is all the way straight. It's really hard. I have tight hip flexors to begin with, but it's really hard to rotate in this position if you're not super warm. And the idea of this is to warm up your rotators. So I generally skip the rotation on the first one. For people that are beginners, I go straight. I just do it at the ankle and at the knee. Okay? So from here, if you tendu out the leg, you articulate toe, ball, heel, heel, ball, toe. This is in the, so I cue this way so it becomes a musical thing. I also want to say that when I first introduced this exercise, these exercises where my cueing is very specific, I will often not use music, or I'll turn the music down for this part of the class, just so that people really have to focus on what I have to say. Okay? So from here, articulate toe, ball, heel, heel, ball, toe 4 times. Then I float the leg above the ankle bone, rotate, parallel, rotate, parallel, rotate, parallel, rotate, hold, articulate, toe, ball, heel, heel, ball, toe. So I rotated parallel 4 times. I articulate 4 times. Then I go back to parallel, float the leg, knee to knee. Rotate, parallel, rotate, parallel, rotate, parallel 4 times. Articulate. Now I'm in parallel, and I'm articulating. So I articulated in parallel on the floor. Then I articulated and turn out at the ankle. Then at the knee back to parallel. Now without lifting the seat, I'm going to lift the leg. Today, this is where it is right now. Sometimes it's higher, but what I don't want is this. Okay, where I'm tucking the pelvis under. So I'm in that long position here. Rotate parallel, go through the series. I end in the turned out position and articulate here. Notice the whole time I'm activating the inner thigh. It's easy to let this leg swing out to the side. So keep it in here. And then from here, I turn to parallel, flex and bend. Circle the ankle 4 times, reaching long, lengthen all the way down, and come back up to center. Okay, so this exercise, a couple of modifications. So once people have done this exercise a lot, I will sometimes integrate the plie. So if I'm taking the plie here, I can go all the way in. This would be more like a grand plie, or I take a little demi plie and stretch, and I would take 4. I tend to do it the same way every time, so I take 4 of everything. Then I lift up, and then I take, since I did the rotation and I ended in parallel, I'm going to take the plie in parallel here to here. Or you can come in really deep and back to center. It's nice to do the plie because the hip flexor is working so hard during this exercise that it's a welcome it's welcome to kind of flex in and then come back out. Okay? If I'm in the full height position, plie and stretch. Again, I don't want to drop the knee down, so the knee doesn't hinge, it just stays up on top. of the leg. Okay, so with that being said, I think it's really important that you, of all of the ones, I like you to kind of stick to the script on this one. Just because I think it makes it easier. It actually makes it easier on you. Because as you're saying it, it becomes more musical. And you're better able to cue the students without them being confused and kind of trying to look up at you. In terms of cues, make sure that the pelvis remains neutral throughout the exercise and the abdominals stay activated to support the pelvis and low back. You need to relax the shoulders and place the hands on the hip bones or press the hand flat against the ground. Another option is for you to lay like this or this. Okay, if you have problems rotating inwards, so Shannon, actually for you next time, open the hand. Okay, because something Shannon's been working on is opening the front part of her chest. Okay, so this is a good idea if you need to open the front part of the chest. If I like having the hands on the hip bones just because it reminds me that I'm working from the hip socket, and I like this position I feel open in. So that's really kind of the reason that I do it. Careful, you sometimes get hands kind of pointing up in that position. You're not the only one. Relax the shoulders, place the hands on the hip bones or press the hands against the ground. Activate the inner thighs or adductors to create a magnet between the legs. A lot of times it starts to float out to the side. That leg starts to float out to the side. Keep those inner thighs active. Gently stand down in the, now it's our working leg, this is party leg. So this is, you're making sure that you're actually active and standing down on this side. Not that you're tensing on that side, you're just standing down so it's nice and solid. And that's as much about abdominal control as it is about, anything else. So you want, so it's abs, inner thigh, and then just relaxing the foot on the floor, but being firm with the way that foot is on the floor, so you're stable on that side. Think of this as your bar leg. Let's see. Variations, transitions, and modifications. I showed you the plie. The first rotation series can be omitted if the dancer is not warm or has difficulty maintaining a neutral pelvis and straight knees when the leg is fully extended on the ground. Although all ultrabar exercises require focus, one of the key elements of the supine footwork and rotation exercise, side lying and prone leg tone, is emphasis on movement efficiency and focus, and I'm also going to add neuromuscular control. That's something that is something that I think we take for granted with regard to exercise. And I think it's actually one of the most important things that we do when we do exercise. That's something, it's how the brain is talking to the musculature. And that is a trained pathway from the muscle back to the brain, back to the muscle, back to the brain. And that trained pathway is what we call muscle memory. Okay? It's muscle memory is kind of a real thing. If you think of it that way. But really what that is neuromuscular control and building that neuromuscular control, understanding where the leg is in space, and that's a proprioception thing. All right. Focusing on the internal and external rotators will help achieve proper turnout and balance. One of the fears of ballet dancers is that if they work in parallel, that they'll lose their turnout somehow, which is crazy. And I think most people know this by now, that having a balanced body is actually more important and will actually help them better be able to access their rotators. So it's really, really important if you get somebody that's mostly training in just a turnout position, they will have a lot of other injuries that will happen because of that. And there are a lot of limitations body-wise that will come, and it may not happen, while they're young, but they'll definitely feel it when they're older. So if nothing else, to prevent injury, doing parallel and turnout is really important. There's no way to force turnout in this position. So you can't. My little baby bit of turnout that I have, I just work that little bit of turnout and then go back to parallel. And in investigating my body through this work, it's made me have to be really honest with what I do and don't have. And probably you too. So it's also interesting too, you can have really open hips and open legs with a bent knee and straighten the leg and not have that much rotation. And that has to do with how the acetabulum and the femur bone fit together. So the acetabulum is the surface where the femur bone, the thigh bone sits in the pelvis. And if that's, depending on how deep or how shallow that is, it changes if the leg is straight versus if the leg is bent. So you can be really open. Me, for example, I'm very open in a butterfly position, but when I straighten the legs, this is all the rotation that I have. Okay? And so people get really frustrated with themselves. And I got frustrated with myself as a young dancer, especially because my teachers would say, well, you have a flat passe, you're just not using your turnout. You're just not using your turnout. I was like, I think I am. So then I would force my turnout, and that was a big mess. So then I had a whole bunch of alignment issues because I was forcing my turnout. So just staying true to what your turnout is and you know, how you should actually be working. Let's see here. This also strengthens the iliopsoas or hip flexors, which in dancers are usually kind of overdeveloped, but this actually does help with a dancer extension, in other words, flexion of the hip. So getting that leg high and being able to hold it there. So being able to actually access I'm losing my words, being able to flex the hip flexor when you want to flex it. Let's see. This also gives you a really true sense of where your extension front should be. So for a lot of us, we get to the bar and we sort of buckle the leg when we come to the front. Excuse me, I'm cold now. But from here, you have this buckling that happens to try to get the leg high in this leg. So you have to be really honest in this position. So from here, as I lift the leg up in this position, this is what I would be doing if I was buckling. Okay? So you can also really test yourself by straightening the bottom leg and coming all the way out and down. So certainly an option. This is also great for dancers that suffer from shin splints. Because when you go through the plantar flexion and the dorsiflexion, as you dorsiflex, you're strengthening the tibialis anterior. And so when this muscle is strengthened and strong, it helps to protect against shin splints. The shin splints can be caused by a lot of different things. So you could be jumping too much or incorrectly. You could be walking on a poor surface or dancing or performing on a poor surface. You might be walking around in flip-flops instead of sneakers. There's a lot of reasons you can get shin splints, but this helps to prevent them. So if you have somebody with that, issues with shin splints, you know, look at all those external or environmental factors, but also look at the intrinsic factors that can be affecting them. I think that's it. Shall we break for lunch?